I've been asked to talk about transforming the North and focusing on customer experience. Really good to hear that there are a number of speakers already covering transformation and the impact on customers. I'm really pleased to be here to tell you how the northern cities are working together to do that for rail in the North. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what does transformation really mean? I'll talk about what we're doing today to address that problem across the northern cities, and then what we're doing in the future and how Devolution is helping us to do that through the Rail North organisation, Transport for the North, and also the Greater Manchester Devolution Agreement. So what does transformation mean? You may have seen this statement before. I think politically, economically, this fits for something like Transport for the North, or even HS2 could be up there. Supporting business, tourism and job growth, contributing to the prosperity of the North. Specifically for rail, it means that rail in the north of England will support the growing economy. And that's really a vision for Rail North. But actually, what is it that our passengers want? What our passengers want is more trains, cleaner, faster trains, better services, better stations, less crowded facilities. And that's really where our focus needs to be throughout all the investment programs and planning that we're doing, whether it's for tomorrow or for 20 years' time. So what are our customers telling us? This is the latest passenger survey results. They're telling us information is terrible. So 58% tell us that they're not happy with the way that we deal with delays. So as TfGM, one of our major aspirations is to follow the lead of Transport for London and to become a trustworthy, dependable source of information right across all transport modes in Manchester. And I think every part of the rail industry sees that we can do information better. And certainly, given recent events just outside Piccadilly last week, we're going to be working together with Network Rail and the operators to understand how we can be much slicker at getting information out, being reactive when something goes wrong. So that's the day-to-day operations, but what about the rest? We want on-time services that are reliable, and we also want space on the trains for people to sit for long journeys or to stand if they're commuting. Well, those things need a little more investment to unlock the capacity and the squeeze on the network that we're seeing right around the country. It's not just in London. So transforming today, this is the Northern Hub project, which I'm sure you're familiar with. £500 million investment, bringing 700 more trains per day across Manchester. Specifically, we are investing 40 million at Victoria Station. You really should try and have a look at that. It's an amazing transformation there. The heritage that we've uncovered is really incredible, worth the trip. We're expanding Piccadilly Station, Oxford Road Station, already bringing new electric trains, faster trains, longer trains, which people are starting to give us feedback already that they appreciate that on their journeys to work. And then some big infrastructure investments too. That's the Ordsall Cord there in the bottom right-hand corner. And that will allow us to move trains from Victoria to Piccadilly for the first time at the end of 2017, freeing up more capacity and giving us more resilience on the network. Also pointing to the picture in the middle top there, which is Farnworth Tunnels, really challenging part of the electrification scheme, where we've taken a twin-track railway, closed one of the tunnel bores, so we're now in the middle of a 3-month blockade running bi-directionally on that right-hand track, while we bore out a larger tunnel on the left there to allow us to install a twin-track electrified railway. But let's not forget the impact on the passenger through all this, because that thing they just said about information, we're still not great at that. And when we start digging up the railway, typically the capacity goes down, it's not really as reliable, and we need to be good at telling people about it. So what we did for Farnworth is we set up a partnership with the operators and Network Rail, and we went out and we talked to people. And we talked a lot. We had Meet the Managers, we had adverts in the press, we had radio interviews, and we published videos from each of the main companies explaining how we're working together to get passengers through this. And that video on the Network Rail website was the third most watched video after Thameslink and London Bridge. So for us in the northern cities, that's a real win. And we had great feedback from passengers when we were all stood there on a cold morning at Bolton Station, helping them understand their different travel choices. And we can do loads more of that. It makes a big impact. So looking forward, Northern Powerhouse, we've heard a lot about that today, but what does it really mean for rail? There are three elements. There's for us, the devolution of management of the franchises through Rail North. There's also the devolution of the challenge to bring transformational infrastructure for rail through Transport for the North. And of course, the Greater Manchester Devolution, which gives us greater powers for policing, transport and housing. So just touching on Rail North, an agreement was put in place in September last year. 29 of the local authorities across the North, together with the Department for Transport, to prepare the specification for the Northern and Transpennine franchise, which is going to start in April next year. And this is brilliant. What we've managed to do is use our local expertise to generate a specification which brings a lot more benefits and productivity through that next franchise. We're getting truly transformational changes through that. We're getting new trains, 120 a minimum. Where it's not new, we're getting as new refurbishment. We are finally getting rid of the paces, and no doubt you'll be going to the museums to see those things. We're already seeing people taking pictures quite frequently. We are having more services, later services, more weekend services, the kind of thing that I'm written to on a daily basis by our users to say, why can't we just have another train so we can go out later at night in Manchester, so we can visit our friends on a Sunday. These are really important to the communities that access larger cities. We're looking at improved customer service. There's at least £30 million investment earmarked for the Northern franchise for stations. We're looking at getting customer service representatives out on the network and on trains and just changing their function so they're really delivering what the passenger needs from information. And let's not forget ticketing and fares. We really have to address the problem we have of complex fare structures and also make that multimodal integrated smart ticketing much more quickly delivered across the North. Transport for the North, I'm sure you've seen this diagram. This is the conditional outputs for the rail scheme. But what does it really mean? I'd just like to paint a picture. If you think of London and the 40-mile radius for the commuter belt that feeds into London, and you overlay that on Manchester, you pick up Sheffield, Leeds, and Liverpool. You can access 15 million people in the same way that London does. And I'm not suggesting that Manchester, everybody, all 15 million people in the north want to commute to Manchester, but what I'm saying is that if we can achieve this kind of connectivity and these outputs, we can create the same economic environment to allow the growth that we're looking for in the north. So the Greater Manchester Devolution Agreement, that was signed in November last year, and that was agreed between Treasury and the 10 leaders in GM. And we just heard in the budget that there's even more of that coming through now. So what that gives us is a greater power over policing skills, housing, and very importantly for us, transport. And what it does really is it incentivizes us to do more with the funding that we have, because we get to keep the benefits and reinvest that for the good of the region. So three key areas that we're focusing on this year. One is around bus devolution, so that's bringing franchising for buses back to the city. And what that allows us to do is have better control of the integration of services around the city. We can run them more efficiently, we can focus them in the places where we know we've got growth and regeneration. We can also simplify the fares and ticketing structure and make it easier to integrate that. We took over responsibility for the key route network on the highways as well in April, so that's another area that we're able to flex when we're in a time when we've got one of the modes that are degraded. We can help out by putting messages out on the highways network. We can bring in more trams, or we can speak to the operators of the rail industry just to help support in that situation. Something else that's key for us this year is we're building a proposal. We're looking at options for how we can take a greater responsibility for the management and operation of stations. So that's the 97 stations in Greater Manchester. All of these things allow us to take a longer-term view on the asset management, the performance and operation, and the customer benefit for each of those modes. It allows us to really provide something that is joined up across transport. which is a seamless journey for the passengers. It allows us to have a consistent brand, consistent behaviours and standards that people can expect when they come to Greater Manchester. And we also, as I said at the beginning, we want to give dependable, reliable information to our passengers and be that single source for them. Given that, if we can give confidence, we can then give security and sustainable growth to transport passengers in the north, which will help us then to justify the case for further investment in transport of the north, and also help us to show our customers that we want to provide the service that they expect.